Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our September 6th council meeting. I'm going to just look this way this evening because there's some vacancies over on the other side here, but I'll start with the land acknowledgement. And we acknowledge that we live, work, and gather on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin people, specifically the Temiskaming First Nation. We recognize the presence of the Temiskaming First Nation in our community since time immemorial and honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this beautiful territory and uphold and uplift their voice and values. With that, I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll ask the clerk for the roll call, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. All members are present with the exception of Councillor Jeff LaFerrier and Councillor Patricia Hewitt.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 3, review and revision of or deletions to the agenda. Any needs to be added or deleted from the agenda? Hearing and seeing nothing. Motion be resolved that City Council approves the agenda as printed. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Foley, second by Councillor MacArthur. Any comments on the minutes?
Our agenda. That was agenda.
No, we're not doing minutes, we're doing the agenda. Sorry, my apology. I get ahead of myself there, so. All in favor of that motion? Councillor Whalen, you can hear us as well? Councillor Whalen, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good, thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature tonight? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on. Item 6 is review and adoption of the council minutes, and I've got a couple different minutes here. It would be resolved the City Council approves the following minutes as printed. A is a regular meeting of council held on August the 9th. As amended, I think the only amendment was that Doug Jelly's name was not added to that recording. Councillor Jelly?
Your Worship, I'll also be speaking to that motion, just so you're aware. Not the motion, rather, the minutes.
Minutes. Do you want to deal with that now?
We'll have to deal with it sometime. Probably should do them one at a time.
Okay. Well, before we approve it, we should discuss it, I guess. So is that something I need to declare a conflict at all, or is that?
Well, I can't tell you to, but it is concerning the dog.
Okay. Well, I will declare a conflict, and I will leave the room, and I see my deputy mayor is not online tonight. Councillor Foley, would you like to step in? You've done that before for this particular issue. So if you want to assume the chair. It's going to be the casual mayor.
Yeah, casual.
So if you are you're looking for clarification on resolution 2022-323, Councillor Jelly?
That's correct.
Okay, so I've pulled it up on your screen there so everybody could see that resolution. So you can go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want some clarifications. I had a call today from one of the proponents that are on this, and if you want to just flip it up a little bit. Okay. As far as extending the current contract month by month, that's correct. Animals First provide proof of location, including lease and approval of facility by OMAFRA, and proof of liability insurance. I'm not sure if that has been done, but I know the premise in New Lisford has been vacated. And further, council, subject to written consent of the applicants, continue to review the existing request for proposal submissions, and further that the appointed steering committee have a report with recommendations completed in the office of the city manager by September 29th. That's where I'd like the clarification. I think that our motion requests that council get written consent from the applicants to continue and review the existing proposal submissions, not go out for resubmission, and that they further appoint a committee to with recommendations and complete and in the city managers by September. So what we're asking is that they review the proposals and that they come back with a report for council. I understand that there may be something lost in interpretation and that just one of the bylaws is being reviewed. So I'd like clarification for Ms. Caldwell that to know what is to be done there. Danny, could you hear that all right?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted in. I would like to know what the other members feel. I thought our motion was clear, that it's to review the existing request for proposals and to have a report with recommendations completed to us.
Tammy, do you have any, I know we do have a meeting set up for September, this Friday, September the 9th, as far as meeting in regards to the animal control. And discussing with Dr. Ng, myself, the bylaw officer, and going over the bylaws of our animal control.
Yes, I'm aware of that, but we're also asking you to review the existing request for proposals, not just the bylaw concerning pound services. So that's where there seems to be a misinterpretation. I don't know if the other councillors have a comment on that or not, but that's my my submission that should be followed as per the
Okay.
motion.
Councillor MacArthur?
Yes, being in that meeting, that's exactly what was proposed, and I agree with Councillor Jelly on this one. It definitely has to be reviewed and addressed.
Councillor Whalen, do you have any comments for this?
Yeah, I do. The only comment I have is I'm a little disappointed in council. They should be fully aware of the rules that any advisory committee for council has to be appointed by council and by bylaw. So I think you're in the trying to rush something through without understanding the proper process. So at some point, this will come back to haunt you.
Councillor Jelly?
Well, you may and probably be right, but we all sat here and agreed to this, and I don't see anywhere that it's being brought back to council. So if that's the step that has to be taken, it should be done sooner than later so this can move on. But that was the direction given. The committee have been formed, and that's where we stand right now. I just wanted clarity on what they were reviewing.
That may well be, but that's contrary to the procedural bylaw. So this will, like I say, this will come back to haunt you. It seems council's trying to rush something through again without proper due diligence. So have at it, but it will come back to haunt you.
That's fine. As I said, we all sat here the last time and there was no mention made of that, and we were all present. No one made any suggestions at that time. If that's the procedure and that's what our clerk and our city manager want, then that's fine. We can bring it back to a meeting and appoint that committee. But we also, I believe, discussed that forming of the committee and closed.
Well, that's not actually correct. It was suggested that a committee be formed, but the proper procedure is that the committee be appointed by council. So, again.
Okay, well, we'll guess we'll have to put it off and bring it back if that's procedure and you feel that it's going to hurt us, but that's fine. I would suggest that we call a special council meeting and do that as soon as possible so this can get moved on. Thank you.
So yeah, we can call a special meeting and put the names of who we want on the Special Advisory Committee. So the clerk will set that up after this meeting.
That's fine with me. I would suggest as quick as tomorrow, if you did indicate you were expecting to have a meeting on Friday. So leave that in your hands.
Well, if you've already called the committees and named the individuals, and you're contrary to the procedural bylaw, so just so you're aware of that.
Any other comments? Councillor Jelly?
Yeah, there was only one other comment on the voting for that. When I believe I called for a recorded vote and my name does not appear on there. Kelly is aware of it and will correct it. So, thank you.
You can add Councillor Jelly's name to that. So can I get a mover and a seconder on the previous council's minutes, or had we done that already? We had not done that. So can I get a mover and a seconder to approve the previous council meeting's minutes? One is amended.
We will do the August 9th minutes as amended with the addition of your name under the recorded vote. And then we'll do this special meeting. If nobody has any concerns with the special meeting of August 12th, then they would be as printed.
So it's all this one? Okay, do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor MacArthur? Or was you the second? There's too much going on, I can't remember. The second by Councillor Jelly. Any last comments? Councillor Whalen? All those in favor? Carries. I will call the mayor back to the chair.
Okay, moving on. Item number 7 is there's no public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act, Municipal Act, or other statutes. We've reached the first question and answer period. Has anybody got a question of council at this point? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move right into presentations. And tonight we have the honor of Dr. Audrey Penner, President and CEO from Northern College here, along with John Harrington and Pat Hamilton. So welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here again. This is the 3rd year running, and no one's thrown eggs at me yet, so I take that as a great success. And I would like to acknowledge my 2 governors that are here that have joined us tonight. Pat Hamilton, who's a member of our faculty and an internal governor on the board, and John Harrington, who is a member of our support staff and also an internal governor on the board. And Doug Walsh has now finished his term, so we said say goodbye to Doug. So thank you very much. Kelly's put my PowerPoint up there. So I'm not going to take a lot of your time tonight, but I really do appreciate the time that you've given me. We have a lot of good news to share, and we like to share it in person if at all possible. So you can go to the next slide, Kelly. So 2022 is about building, changing, adapting. We've increased a lot of student supports, particularly at the Haileybury campus as well. We now have Canadian Mental Health Association as well as 2 health and wellness clinics happening every week to support students. New financial supports are in place. Some of those are through additional funding that's come through OSAP, but I also wanted to acknowledge our Children in Care program. If you know of young people who have aged out of the Children in Care program, we have a mechanism by which we can access funds to cover all of their tuition, their books and supplies, whatever they need, and we can even help support in terms of their housing and rental. So what we're trying to do is provide easy access for these people that have been disadvantaged all their lives. So we're now in the second semester, the second fall of doing that, and we're really excited about that program. We have a campus master plan that my Board of Governors has not yet approved, hope to have it approved in November, but it is coming very soon, and there's some exciting opportunities. You'll see an overhead a little bit further on where we'll talk about some of the things that are happening. And we will be introducing a new international student commitment framework. You've probably seen a lot of international students in the neighborhood. We have up to 60 coming to this campus this fall. Actually, it could be even a little bit more than 60. I don't have the exact numbers yet because today was the first day, so we don't have all the exact numbers yet. So the next slide, Kelly. So looking forward specifically for Haileybury, the expanded building for veterinary sciences, and that was the first thing Mayor Kidd asked me about when I got here tonight. Pleased to announce that this will be done in February of 2023, later than we had originally planned. That's due to supply chain issues in terms of getting things here. We'll be spending about $3.5 million, and for that $3.5 million, we will have 2,500 additional square feet of space added. That will be labs, supports, movement areas, circulation areas, and there'll also be an additional square footage that'll be renovated. And in my notes, I had 210. That doesn't seem like a big area, so I'm assuming that I copied that down wrong, so we can get you exact data if you're looking for it. Really working on beautifying the campus. We're doing a lot of work on art and architecture at all of our campuses. We've actually started an inventory of some of the art that we've accumulated over the years. We now have come up to 300 plus artistic items that we want to then curate and start having available for the public to enjoy. There's no point in having these hanging in a back hall that no one ever sees. And really, I have to compliment Haileybury. They have probably the most active student council of all our campuses. They're always in there. Now today they were busy doing the big air-filled bouncy castles, except they weren't castles, they were actually mazes that they were going through and bouncing on them and having a great time. But it's a very young cohort, and they have a wonderful, wonderful opportunity here. And ahead, Kelly. So here, just looking ahead at the campus master plan, and I want to really be clear. My board has not yet approved this, so I'm not going to give you any numbers or specifics. I'll just give you the general view of what we're being proposed. And it's really all about growing the north, so we have some really good ideas for all of our campuses. So it'll be about campus renewal. It'll be very much about expanding outdoor spaces so that the outdoor spaces are something that the community will be invited into, that the community can enjoy, and really beautifying the campus so they're a place that people want to go and want to stay. And there will be enhancements on the rock wall as part of this plan. As of yet, what that looks like, or the rock walk, I called it the rock wall, the rock walk. So the rock wall is what our students want to climb. Go ahead, Kelly. Thank you. Indigenous education and empowerment. This is one of our strategic directions. We are establishing sacred gardens. I'm not exactly sure when we will have the sacred garden established here in Haileybury, but our plans to do that. We have access centers now in several of the smaller communities, and I'm happy to get you a list if you're interested in those. We will also be doing a residential school survivors memorial at all of our campuses. I have a meeting later this week to look at where exactly those statues will be. It'll be a young warrior and a young dancer that we've had commissioned to do these, and every campus will get one of those, so we're really excited about that. And we continue to indigenize our curriculum. Beginning this fall, all students will take an Indigenous course, Indigenous history, Indigenous culture, as part of their overarching general education requirements over the 4 semesters or 3 semesters or 2 semesters that they're with us. Everyone will be doing that. And we're very committed to indigenization. Kelly, if you want to go ahead. Equity, diversity, inclusion. You may remember last year I talked about this a lot. It's been a passion of mine. We have defined an ideal college and what that looks like, and that's been done from the grassroots up, not me saying what it should be. That's from all of our people, including students. We have an EDI task force that is going to be wrapping up. They were chartered for 2 years to come up with the ideal college and a plan going forward, and that 2 years is just about done. They have all of their work done. We've launched benchmarking in this. We use the global benchmarks for EDI, which is a gold standard, and we're measuring ourselves to that to see how we're doing. And I'm actually taking the Board of Governors through that exercise next week when we have our first meeting of the year. Ultimately, we want a culture of respect, and we want to continuously improve. And connecting to communities, very important, access to affordable housing. You've probably heard a lot in the news lately about housing for students, international students in particular. We are able to do all of that. We are not coming up with a shortage this year. We will have to expand capacity if we continue to expand our international enrollment. We will work directly with communities on that because it's a very, very important opportunity for growth, not just for our college, but for our communities, for our labor force, and for ongoing development and sustainability in the north. You'll see an increased presence at various events in the region. We just got our community climate survey back. We did that over the summer, and that was a point that was made in the survey, very, very positive point about seeing more of Northern College at specific events in the Temiskaming area, so we're going to make every effort to do that. And sponsorships. We're very actively sponsoring things. If you know of something that you'd like to see Northern College sponsor, please get a hold of our marketing department and we will look at what we can do because that's what we're here for. Connecting to communities. So we're very committed to growing the north. We're very committed to win-win relationships. And I think the best example of that type of thinking is what we did here in Haileybury with the library. And I still remember coming that day and opening the library and how excited everyone was. And I kept thinking, but this is just the sort of thing we should do. I'm glad everyone loved it, but to me that was something that we should be doing as an institution. And it will be opening for longer hours next week as our staff comes off summer hours. So if you want to put that bug in your ear. And I asked as well today how many people were coming in, and they said it's pretty steady. They're wanting to attract a slightly younger crowd to the public library portion. So that was the only area where they said there was a bit of a gap. And students are building our future. I think that's really important that we do more in terms of not just educating them, but linking them immediately to employment. And I think that serves the needs in the communities as well. So again, that stems into the talent pipelines that we've signed, and I believe we've signed 3 more since the last time I was here. Talent pipelines are a direct agreement with industry to say not only will we train for you, but we will share the students with you. You have the right to come on recruiting tours with us. You have the right to come into classrooms and speak to students. You have the right to opt in immediately to access a student for future employment. So we think that'll help in terms of the labor shortage, although we still have to have a lot of students to do that. So we're all in that boat. So looking to the future, we are continuing to globalize as an institution. I mentioned last year we're expanding our international markets. With COVID, we have not done a very broad expansion yet, but we are still doing more of that. Sub-Saharan Africa is one of the areas we're going to, and more in Indonesia, Malaysia. And sustainability, we are on a sound financial footing. We have been now for 3 years. We are forecasting a surplus again this year. We tabled a surplus last year, and we are funneling that back into long-term infrastructure needs. We're undergoing a digital transformation, which means very high-end movement into more highly digitized types of technology. Many people feel we're highly digitized as it is, but this is about really automating all those processes we can so we can focus our time in one-on-one interaction with students and with our communities. The impact of our grads is quite well recognized. We got really good feedback on the community climate survey, but it also shows up in our data that we get from the province about our impact from grads. And we did not hear anything negative about grads. The only negative comment we heard is, please give us more of them. So we will work on that. And we are really embracing change. So digital transformation, as I mentioned, is one of the key elements that we're going to do, where we put the student and the customer at the center of what we're doing and build our digital technology around that. We are way ahead of a lot of other colleges when it comes to the use of virtual reality and it comes to the use of video technology. A little further behind when it comes to the day-to-day operational types of issues, which may strike you as odd, but that's the way it is. And we're really embracing that, and that means a lot of change for our staff and students. EDI is another area that we're embracing change. Micro-credentials, which you may or may not hear a fair bit about, but we're getting into that field quite heavily. That's where people can take a little bit of learning. Think of it like a little piece of Lego that they can get. They can stack it onto another piece of Lego and eventually build what they want, and that is the way of the future. And with that comes new ways of doing business, as we learned from from COVID. So I thought you might want a few numbers. These are still, just today is the first day in class, so these numbers could shift a little bit. We have approximately 160 new students. I wanted to highlight that the VET tech courses had the highest confirmation numbers as of the end of July of all our courses. So again, that youth, that exuberance, it really shows up on the Haileybury campus. We have 26 mining students. We have 121 vet students. We also have approximately 60 health management students. And health management is a new program we've launched here. It is exactly what it says. It's for people in the healthcare field to get their management ticket to help in healthcare, which is a distinct need that we're getting from the hospital associations. Those are largely international students, which means it's a ticket to them staying and working, which is also a good thing. I also wanted to highlight for direct entry students, those are students right from high school. We were in the province, we were in the top 3 of the 24 colleges. We had a 3% increase in direct entry, whereas some of the larger colleges in the GTA area were losing like -11 and -12% compared to what they had last year. They're just getting into the demographic decline, whereas we've been in it and we've already had to deal with it and be constructive. Unfortunately, our indirect entry is down, and that's a reflection of the economy. When the economy's good, people aren't going back to school. So you will see that change as the economy changes. In the meantime, that's where our talent pipelines are so important, because we can work with industry on this. And I also wanted to share with you, this isn't a very clear slide, it may appear kind of busy, but I wanted to share it with you, and we can certainly get copies that Kelly can print and give to you. I'm insistent that we not only have a strategic plan, that we measure it. I'm a big believer in measuring and being accountable. So if we're going to say we're going to do these things, let's measure and see if we are doing them. So the first column of numbers on the left, that's what baseline was when we took all of your measurements, which are on the far right, and said, okay, if we measure all of this, what do we get? And so, for example, indigenization, the strategic direction 1, we're at 73%. Our target is to be at 81% by the time we are done with our strategic plan in 2025. And so on down with the numbers. So I wanted to leave that for you for a bit of digestion. We haven't done our next round yet. That'll come out in the next couple of weeks to see if we've made our 2% target this year. But it's something I have a lot of passion about and a lot of emphasis on at the college. We have a vision, we have a mission, we have these strategic directions. They don't just sit on the shelf. What are we doing about them and how do we make them work? So that is actually the end of my presentation. I know I talk very fast. I think I say that every year when I'm here, but I get excited about what we're doing. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I know Doug had to escort me off last year because I wouldn't stop talking, so he's not here. So Carmen, it's up to you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Penner. It's been great. I know Kelly, our clerk, has sent this presentation out to the council and sent it to the press as well, so everybody's got a copy of this. So that busy slide, people can definitely go through there and have a look at it. So, and I think it's definitely, the library is definitely a win-win for everybody, and I think we've got to maybe promote that a bit more within the city there and make sure that people are quite aware that they can go, the general public can walk in there 7 days a week there. So that's great. Other questions for Dr. Penner? Councillor MacArthur.
Yes, I was just wondering how are things going with the grants with the government, Ontario government. You say you're growing and you're expanding. Are these folks in the game with you from Queen's Park and maybe even Ottawa?
Yeah, definitely Queen's Park. We don't have as much to do with Ottawa here in Northern Ontario. Definitely Queen's Park. The government, I have to say, through COVID, absolutely an excellent partner to have. There was areas where we couldn't meet commitments simply because of COVID, and they didn't take any money away from us because of that, even though legally they could. They recognized all colleges were in a bind, so they were right there behind us to make sure we got it. However, having said that, there is still a lot of pressure for underfunding, the pressure that we are underfunded. If Northern wasn't as entrepreneurial as they are, we would not be able to keep our doors open if we relied solely on tuition and government funding. And that's a conversation deeper and longer to have with the government, especially for Northern Ontario.
Other comments, questions? Councillor Whalen? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
Danny.
thanks, Kid. Great presentation. I'll say it again. We often forget how valuable Northern is to not only to Temiskaming Shores, but to Northern Ontario. The one comment I do have is when you're talking connecting to communities, you're talking about growing the north. And then I see that you had, I think it was 26 mining students. So I'm just wondering, we're having a hard time, people still think of strip mining when we talk about mining. We can't have a green economy without mining in Northern Ontario.
Absolutely.
So we need to get that message out, and I'm just wondering if that's one of the messages you will be relaying through your training.
Yeah, it very much is one of our messages through training, and something I neglected, and I can't believe I didn't think to mention it. One of the things that I think will be a game changer in that is colleges now have the opportunity, it has been endorsed by the government, to offer 3-year degrees in vocational skills trades areas. Mining is one that we have on our radar to develop, and I think that will make a difference. There are some provisos in that. These aren't theoretical degrees, these have to be applied, that's what colleges are all about. And it does take some time. The development of the degrees, the approval process, it does take some time. So we have one that's in the work that's going to be our prototype to figure out what kind of resources we have to put in place in order to get these through. And then we have a list following that of areas that we know are going to require degrees. So I think that will make a big difference. And given we don't have...
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we don't
Just to echo the mayor's comments, I sit on the library board, and we're extremely proud of the partnership with Northern on the library service, so thank you for that as well.
Oh, that we're
Thanks,
proud of it
Mayor
too. Yeah.
Yeah, just one other comment. I know I've worked with the previous president, CEO, Mr. Gibbons there, and we talked expansion. That's probably 7, 8 years ago now or more. And it's glad to see this come to fruition there. I know we talked to the board many times on this as well, and I'm glad this 2023 isn't that far away. So.
No, it's not that far away.
No,
Yeah.
so that's a great news for the whole area there. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your presentation tonight.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
and
very
as
much.
I told Mayor Kidd and Kelly before, I had a flat tire on the way down. I'm hoping that I won't have one on the way home. It's a long walk to Timmins, but hopefully, if you see me by the side of the road, stop and give me a lift if possible. Thank you very much.
John got it fixed for you there. So
John got it fixed for me. He was the hero.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming down and making the presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Item number 10 is communications. 10A is a letter from Raymond Cho, the Minister of Seniors and Accessibility. And it's a call for nominations for the 2022 Ontario Senior Achievement Award, extension of the deadline to September the 9th, 2022, which is this Friday. So that's received for our information. 10B is a letter from Steve Daly, the town manager of the town of Cobalt, regarding their official plan update, and that was received on August the 10th for our information. 10C is a letter from Haley Clark, the municipal clerk, deputy treasurer, town of Englehart, a resolution for support for the FedNor funding extension received on August the 15th for our information. And lastly, 10D, a letter from Chris Osmond, the Chief Administrative Officer for the Township of Coleman, regarding a resolution for support for the electoral boundary redistribution received on August the 31st for information. So, got a motion be resolved that City Council agrees to deal with communication items 10A through 10D according to the agenda references. We're moving a second for that motion. Councillor Foley, second by Councillor Jelly. So, any comments? All in favor? That is carried. There's no committees of council, community and regional tonight. There's also no internal department reports tonight as well. So are there any reports by members of council? And then we've got the written report from Councillor Whalen from AMO, so we've got that in front of us as well. So any other comments you want to make on that, about what you've written there, Danny?
No, just to keep you informed, Mayor Kidd, I'm in pretty constant communication with the Ministry of Transportation regarding transit licensing, so I think we might have to sit down and review our entire process, because actually they're recommending our buses should all be registered with our own fleet. So there's a lot of things we have to look at. So, but they're looking into it in depth for us. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Thank you very much. Councillor MacArthur.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Kidd. I too had the pleasure of attending the AMO's August 14th, 17th convention, 1,700 delegates, 444 municipalities in Ontario, just to remind you. The top concerns that I saw were the climate changes, mental health and addictions, housing and homelessness crisis, and aging population and long-term care. I did take in the few workshops. I'll be very brief, but warming up to the climate change in Ontario, I can tell you I sure got a wake-up call. It's coming faster than we think. All municipalities in Ontario, get ready for infrastructure, facilities, their staff, for what will be a major stress on fragile budgets over work staff. Stress will and can expect to happen, how to prepare for them, and doing so, because this is going to come on very fast, and we could have catastrophic consequences. So I won't go on. There's a lot there on that particular one. Another one I got to was traffic accidents. They're coming on unbelievably, and the Municipal Court Association is looking into it. There's 52 courts in Ontario, over 1.5 million attend court appearances. 450,000 cases are backlogged due to COVID. They're trying their best to head it off, but they're talking about automated cameras enforced throughout the province. Many barriers, high costs, administration penalties. So this is a big concern, and you might see something happening very shortly with them. Also, I went to a workshop, local youth engagement in your community and municipality. Do we care about our young folks? And yeah, I know maybe some of them are too young to vote, but we should be meeting with our youth to see what they want in their community. Let them engage. Let them ask questions about their concerns. And it goes on just to give them a wake-up call. Maybe some of them out there would like to get into municipal politics. Maybe they'd like to help their community. So we should be opening the doors a little more for them. I also finally want to say this was a real eye-opener. A significant demographic shift is underway in Canada. By 2035, 1 in 4 Canadians will be over 65. Our current community social and health services are not ready. Governments and policymakers at all levels need to work together. This is a crisis coming, and councils are going to have to be aware of it in their own backyard, and governments are going to really have to fight to help for long-term care and a lot of other different situations. I know our age-friendly is doing well in our area, but it's just the thought of how many people are going to be 65 years of age or over by 2035. It was a great time, and got a chance to meet a lot of people. There were 26 cabinet ministers in the Bear Pit, and the Premier Ford did address the meeting as well. Thank you.
But did the 26 cabinet ministers answer any questions, Mike?
Yes, they answered as many as they could. A lot of them, though, were unfortunately for that municipality. You know, some road or some ditch or something happening in that particular area. But they weren't really put on the, I thought they'd be put on the red carpet there and asked a few stories, or questions rather, about health for sure, and obviously housing, affordable housing.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Steve, if I could ask you to hit the button and lower that podium down, then the rest of the audience can see the other councillors. And there we go. So, any other reports by members of council? So, seeing none, now item number 14 is notice of motions. Anybody, council, got a notice of motion tonight? If not, we'll move right into new business. 15A is the January to July 2022 year-to-date capital finance report. And I've got a motion to be resolved. The Council of the City of Mississauga Shores hereby acknowledge receipt of the January to July 2022 year-to-date capital finance report for information purposes. So Stephanie's here. That's why I wanted the podium down so we could actually see Stephanie there. So. Do we remove in the seconder? Move for Councillor Foley, second by Councillor Jelly. Any questions on the finance report? So, a lot of good projects being worked through there. There's still a lot of money to be spent yet, but it's going to be a busy fall for everybody. So, thank you, Stephanie, for presenting that report. 15, or all in favor of that motion, first of all. That is carried. 15B, Memo 035-2022 CS, feast time. And I've got a motion to be resolved the council for the city of St. Stores acknowledge receipt of memos 035-2022 CS, the feast on for information purposes, and there's a lot of information in the council package on that particular event there. We're moving to seconder, Councillor MacArthur, second by Councillor Foley. So, any comments? All in favor? So, that would be carried. 15C, Administrative Report CS 036-2022, the Northern Ontario Mining Showcase at the Canadian Institute of Mining, Metallurgy and Petroleum Convention from April the 30th to May 1st, 2023. And the motion reads, be it resolved, the Council of the City of St. Stores hereby acknowledge receipt of Administrative Reports 036-2022 CS. The Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to enter into an agreement with Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario as represented by the Minister of Indigenous Services and Minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario. For the Northern Ontario Mining Showcase at the 2023 Canadian Institute of Mining, Metallurgy and Petroleum Convention and Trade Show. That's going to be held in Montreal from April the 30th to May 1st in the amount of $412,000 for consideration at tonight's September 6th regular council meeting. So moved by Councillor Whalen, second by Councillor Foley. I know Anthony Roder was in a Zoom meeting last Thursday or Friday, was there, that made the announcement there, so that's great. So, any comments? All in favor? Oh, Councillor Jelly, sorry.
No, just to back up what you said, this is great news for our businesses in this area. I had the privilege of going to one in Toronto, and it's just amazing the amount of our businesses that were there and how well they were doing. So this is great.
Yeah, this is sort of a offshoot of the PDAC conference that we go to as well, and I know they went to Montreal 3 years ago, and they went to Vancouver 2 years ago, and this is the next one back in Montreal again. So, and I assume in the next few weeks we'll get a similar announcement for the PDAC conference contract with the city as well. So, all in favor of that motion? That is carried. And 15D, Administrative Report CS 037-2022, the right to disconnect policy. And this was to do with staff. I was thinking it should be to do with council as well, but so motion be resolved that council for the city of St. Stores acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report CS 037-2022, and the council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to adopt a right to disconnect policy for consideration at tonight's regular council meeting. So, moving to seconder for that motion. Councillor Foley, seconded by Councillor Jelly. Any comments? All in favor? That is carried. 15E, Administrative Report PW 026-2022, the tender award for the Nilisquid landfill expansion. And I've got a motion to be resolved the council for the city of St. Stores acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report PW 026-2022. The council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to enter into an agreement with Patterson Construction 2013 Incorporated for the expansion of the Nilisquid landfill in the amount of $2,721,977.50 plus applicable taxes for consideration at tonight's regular council meeting. So, moving to seconder, Councillor MacArthur. Seconded by Councillor Whalen. Any comments, questions? Yes, Councillor Whalen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kidd. We often get questioned about our landfill, you know, how come we can't take this area, how come we can't do this, how come we can't do that? I think when you see the price tag on this, this type of work, it might be worthwhile to do a media release so our residents realize just how expensive landfills are and why we have to have such strict rules and regulations. Get the message out there. So, you know, you can't just hide tires under your garbage and think you can throw them in the landfill anymore because the municipality can be severely fined for that. So, but the average resident just doesn't realize the true cost of having a landfill. So.
No, the same when it comes when they say, why aren't you collecting the methane gas from the landfill as well? The costs are sort of exorbitant there to do that. But on a small operation with the amount of product going into our landfill, it never pay back to collect the methane and use it for another source there. But so, any other comments? call the question. All in favor? That is carried. 15F, Memo 010-2022 RS, the General Parks Guideline. And I got a motion to be resolved the Council for the City of St. George acknowledge receipt of Memo 010-2022 RS, the General Parks Guidelines. And the Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to adopt the General Parks Guidelines for consideration at tonight's regular Council meeting. So, for mover and second of that motion, Councillor Jelly, second by Councillor MacArthur. Any comments? Councillor MacArthur?
Yes, I really think that it would be a great idea to put this on our website if it's not on, because general park guidelines, we have to have them. Unfortunately, sometimes we do have people that think they can, vandalize or whatever, but I think we should let the public know that these guidelines, we want you to have a nice time using our facility, but if you want to act kind of stupid, you're going to be in trouble. And I bluntly, our staff goes around and cleans up the best way they can, and when you see people putting graffiti on signs or doing anything like that, it just isn't right.
Sure. I know Matt's done a lot of work putting together this guideline there, so thank you very much, Matt, for doing this. Any other comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. 15G is a Memo 011-2022 RS, the Don Shepperson Memorial Arena Project Update. I've got a motion to be resolved the Council for the City of St. George acknowledge receipt of Memo 011-2022 RS, the Don Shepperson Memorial Arena Project Update for information purposes. So, mover and seconder, Councillor Foley, second by Councillor Jelly. Any questions, comments? Councillor Jelly.
No, just a comment, and thanks, Matt, for that report. And you can certainly see it is moving along quite nicely there now, so it's going to be great when it's ready.
Yeah, I think for the general public, as long as they're aware now that we're looking at getting that ice back in operation by the early first week in October. Then, Matt, do you want any comments as well? So.
Thank you, Mayor Kidd. So yes, our proposed opening date is October the 3rd. It will be a modified opening based on where the work is expected to be completed by at that point, but it shouldn't affect regular operations that the general public sees, and we'll update with any additional updates if needed. Based on how construction has gone the last couple of weeks, our contractor has made great progress and looks to continue that over the next 3 or 4 weeks here in September.
Thank you, sir. I'll call the question. All in favor? That would be carried. And lastly, 15H, Administrative Report RS 017-2022, the lease agreement for the Don Shepperson Memorial Arena concession. And I've got a motion to be resolved the Council for the City of St. George acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report RS 017-2022, and the Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to enter into a lease agreement with Amber Reagan for the operation of the Don Shepperson Memorial Arena concession stand from October the 1st, 2022 through to April the 30th, 2023 for consideration at tonight's regular Council meeting. So, mover and seconder. So, moved by Councillor Foley, second by Councillor Whalen. So, any comments? Be great to get that concession back open again. So, all in favor of this motion? That is carried. Moving on to item number 16, the bylaws. I got a motion to be resolved the bylaw 2022-134, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario as represented by the Minister of Indigenous Services and the Minister responsible for Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario for the Northern Ontario Mining Showcase at the 2023 Canadian Institute of Mining, Metallurgy and Petroleum Convention and Trade Show from April 3rd through to May 3rd, 2023. Bylaw 2022-135, being a bylaw to adopt a right to disconnect policy for the City of St. George. Bylaw 2022-136, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Pedersen Construction 2013 Incorporated for the Newlisco landfill expansion. Bylaw 2022-137, being a bylaw to adopt the General Parks Guideline for the City of St. George. And lastly, bylaw 2022-138, being a bylaw to enter into a lease agreement with Amber Reagan for the operation of the Don Shepton Memorial Arena concession from October 1st, 2022 through to April 30th, 2023. These bylaws be hereby introduced and given first and second reading. So, moved by Councillor MacArthur, second by Councillor Jelly. All in favor? That is carried. And motion be resolved that bylaw 2022-134, 135, 136, 137, and 138 be given third and final reading, be signed by the mayor and clerk, and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Whaling, second by Councillor Foley. Any last comments? All in favor of that motion? That is carried. Scheduled meetings. Next meeting is set up for Tuesday, September the 20th at 6 p.m. And then next meeting will be the regular meeting of Tuesday, October the 4th at 6 p.m. So, question and answer period. Anybody at this point got a question of council? Seeing none, we'll pass this motion, then we'll take a 10-minute recess before we get into close. But we've got a motion be resolved that council agrees to convene in closed session at 7:01 to discuss the following matters. A, the adoption of the July 26, 2022 special and the August 9th, 2022 closed session minutes. And item B, under section 239(2)(c) of the Municipal Act 2001, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding 545 Lakeshore Road. So, mover and seconder for that motion. Moved by Councillor Foley, second by Councillor Whaling. All in favor? That is carried. We are adjourned for 10 minutes and we'll carry on. Thanks, everybody.